Burrows, episode 33, possibly episode 34. Kevin Bunk, Michael Merlo coming to you starting soon, multiple times a week, every week for the Burrows, our number one podcast here. And we're talking Yankees, Mets predominantly, of course, and also around the league and baseball. But we had to jump on here, a little bit of an emergency pod, a couple hours after the news broke, about 12 hours after the news broke now, with Pete Alonso coming back to the Mets. Mike, something that you really never wavered on, even when I got to a point 3-4 weeks ago with all the Angels and really the last time we did something the first week of January, but all the Angels and Cubs and whoever else, rumors, and the rumors that he was not returning to the Mets. The Blue Jays were the big one, as I forgot. But really, he won't be returning to the Mets. Now, Alonso back with the Mets. Got a nice little deal, I think, that works for the Mets, and Alonso gets some high AAV there. But you never wavered, man, and you got to be feeling pretty good today.
Yeah, you feel good today. It's a little bittersweet, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But, even when Martino breaks the news that Jesse Winker is going to be a Met and basically they've moved on from Alonso, it just never made sense to me and a lot of other people. So it never made sense that Pete Alonso was not going to be a Met because there was the need, and you viewed his market, the teams that were in massive need of first baseman, and there just weren't that many teams. So it just made all the sense in the world for him to come back, and he's back, and that's great, and it's the perfect fit for the 2025 Mets. Now, beyond, that's another discussion we could have, whether you want to have it today or we have it next year. I'm sure we're going to have it throughout the season, but for right now, this is the perfect scenario for the Mets, and I think Alonso, honestly, getting, like you mentioned, the high AAV to now be able to prove himself in the next year.
At this point, it felt as if Pete only wanted the Mets. I think that was the consensus feeling throughout the offseason. Doesn't always mean the player ends up staying, but it did feel like he was destined in his mind to be a Met. He couldn't miss out on this team, and it makes sense, man. Like the way that Nimmo and Alonso came up with this squad to go from that Wilpon era to the Cohen era, and then if we're being honest, and in hindsight, you can't expect Cohen to win right away. A couple rough up and down years of the Cohen era, especially you started off with a pandemic, and it was just a very odd start.
Yep.
And now, finally, we can sit here in this moment of they've arrived. This team is here to compete for the World Series for, I think we all could agree, the next 5 to 8 years, and probably well beyond with the moves that you expect Cohen to continue making. But Alonso had to be a part of that. You can't go through the grind that you went through with the Mets, have the career you've had with the Mets, have the relationship with the fans you've had, and say, yeah, well, now we're the third or fourth best team in the league. I'm going to go to Toronto for $20 million extra. That just doesn't work. And it stinks for Alonso that he didn't get his big contract because it's just such a great player in such a great career here and such a good guy. But, this is what you got. It's the best you could have done at this point if you wanted to stay with the Mets. And David Stearns has to be absolutely pumped about what he was getting Alonso back for.
He gets Alonso back for basically $20 million this season because the $10 million signing bonus is a check that Cohen writes, and that's it. It's done. He doesn't have to add that to his 2025 payroll. So it's really just $20 million for this year. He's going to opt out most likely. I think regardless, he opts out because he'll be able to get a better contract next season for sure. But yeah, Kevin, it's like if he was going to come back and he wasn't getting that long-term contract from anybody else, and he was going to have to sign a short-term contract where he was going to opt out, why would you want to go play anywhere else than this team? A, you're comfortable here. B, you're a big name here, as opposed to going to Toronto where you'd be forgotten about, the Angels where you would just be forgotten about, and you get to hit in this lineup with not only do you provide protection for everybody else, but you have protection around you. They're going to want to pitch to you instead of Juan Soto or at times Mark Vientos. So it really was, even if it was just for the one season, the perfect scenario. And by the way, he's 27 home runs away from being the all-time home runs leader in Mets history. So that's big. He's not going to be a 500 home run career guy with the Mets because I think we would both agree he's probably gone after this year. But that's big. I mean, he's going to pass Strawberry here and most likely be a Met Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I imagine he hits that 27 home run mark. We were talking about it a little bit last night after the news broke. Feels almost impossible with the addition of Soto, with the expected second-year leap from Vientos, or even if Vientos stays the same as he was last year, you'll take it, that Alonso has another bad walk year. Like, there's no way that he screws up a second straight contract year, barring something unforeseen like a serious injury. It just feels like this is going to work for the Mets and for Alonso. And I've been the biggest advocate of 2025, 2026 MLB free agent class at first base. And this adds a guy who could be viewed as the second best behind Vladdy by the time that comes around. He could have a better season than Naylor, and then when you have, I always forget his name, Japanese first baseman.
Murakami.
He comes over. You could see a contender saying, well, if the Mets are getting Vlad, or if whoever's getting Vlad, we'll let them get him, but we'd like to get Pete Alonso here over the other two guys. So it just adds more to that class. Now, also, that could hurt Pete next year, but we're not too focused on next year. I do agree with you, though. This is probably his last season. I think everyone's in that boat, unless they were to win a World Series and Alonso was World Series MVP and he hit 54 home runs in the regular season, then they're going to have to hold on to him. But
these GMs, these presidents don't want to pay players like Alonso, the non-athletic power-hitting first baseman. Their WAR isn't high enough. They're not great defensively. They're just not going to pay them 4 or 5 years at $120 million. That doesn't happen anymore. This isn't the old days where Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols get $200 million plus and Prince Fielder. Not going to happen. It kind of sucks for Alonso, and I do almost feel bad. I don't feel bad that he's going to make $30 million this year, because that's $30 million more than I'll be making this year. But either way, I do feel a little bad for him, and I'll ask you this, because this has been a point that's brought up a lot now, especially this past week, even before he signed. He clearly isn't getting the contract he wants. He's now just settling for, a 1-year contract, basically. Do you think he walks into that locker room, into spring training, with any animosity towards the team, not any player specifically, but like towards the team, towards ownership, the front office? Like, you just gave this guy $800 million in Juan Soto, and Sean Manaea was able to come back for $75 million, and Lindor gets $300, and he even gave my friend Nimmo $100 something. I mean, he's getting paid. I think Big Neil's contract is more. I mean, imagine if I told you that in 2021, 2022, that McNeil would have a higher contract, more of a contract on a year's basis and total than Pete Alonso when he became a free agent.
Yeah, Alonso's definitely going to walk back into this room with a chip on his shoulder, because just put yourself in his shoes. You basically just said it, but you walk in, you're on your way to becoming statistically the greatest Met of all time offensively. 27 homers away from the franchise mark. And this team prioritized basically everything before coming to an agreement with you that didn't even feel like their priority still. It didn't feel as if they said, we have to get Pete here, let's go make it happen in the last few weeks. It felt like Pete's going to come back to us. He's going to get the deal we want to give him, and we're not really going to do him much of a favor here. So
I think the Mets did do him a favor, because if you think about it, again, we don't know exactly what offers he had, but there's a chance he had nothing at this point, right? If he turned down the Blue Jays, which is what's been reported 2 or 3 weeks ago, where he just decided, I don't want to go there. What did he have? Because Stearns could have strung this along for a little. Like, Stearns dominated the negotiation. Stearns and Cohen dominated this, but they probably could have went on for longer. And maybe the $30 million in year one was throwing him a bone. Hey, become the highest paid first baseman on a year-to-year basis for the 1 year, right? We'll give you that, but it's a 1-year contract. And how about this? I sent you this before. Alonso deal was finalized Wednesday, the old-fashioned way, according to Bob Nightingale, with a face-to-face meeting in Tampa with agent Scott Boras, Mets owner Steve Cohen, and president of baseball operations David Stearns, and Alonso himself. They met Tuesday, no deal. Met again Wednesday as Cohen was going to the owners' meetings that I think start today or tomorrow in Florida, and they got the deal done.
Yeah, that's How you do it. That's how you get it done, man. I mean, just go, Boris. Good on Boris for, in the end, doing right by Alonso. I also, we will rip Boris for another bad contract, but I kind of agree with you. And I said it in July or August on this show. Alonso hits the market if he's got a bunch of different bidders. Said we always, of course, mentioned Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, teams like that. Phillies, if they wanted to go in, I know that those are not all fits, but just the teams that spend.
Yeah.
If a group like that got together, what's the best Alonso does? 5 for 120 based on the season he had. And then the longer you continue to wait for the Mets to come around to you and really prioritize you and get a little desperate for you, you're going to get in trouble, because I don't think Steve Cohen gets desperate. I don't think David Stearns even more so gets desperate for players, because Stearns obviously has a really sound process and good morals where I don't think he budges very often on his format or his analytics, which sometimes a bad thing. Most of the times I love that in a GM, though, in most situations. So for Boris to come back around here, get him a contract that he could be happy for a year, really compete with this team, I think it's great. But I also like to put into perspective, I know that we just throw these numbers around like they're nothing, but you said it's $30 million more than you make this year. And Alonso's set for life regardless. Unless he blows it all on something ridiculous, he's set for life regardless. So that's not something he has to worry about. His kids don't have to worry. His grandkids won't have to worry. And he can move on being a Met, which I think is the most important thing for him. Because as we've mentioned here, at nauseum, the 86 team is celebrated. At nauseum. Like to the point where I feel this way about the 69 Jets. I'm like, and maybe a little different because the Jets are so bad, but I'm like, I'm done with it. They suck. The team sucks.
Yeah.
I want something that I can appreciate. And I was able to see. And that's the 86 Mets thing with our parents' generation. Is like, that was the most fun team. That was, even my dad, a Yankee fan, loves the 86 Mets. And Alonso can be a part of that here. You can't be a part of that in Toronto. You can't be a part. Nobody's talking about the 94 Jays. Like, that's not really great team. Nobody's bringing them up in baseball history. 86 Mets is a new documentary every month. Come be a part of the Mets and win here.
The thing about Alonso and Boris here is that they're chasing that $158 million, right? Like, I think that is got to be in the back of everybody's mind. So if he's chasing that $150 million, he was not getting that, obviously, in one offseason. So how do you do that, right? If you're Boris, how do you do that? And Boris, to his credit, kind of screwed over a couple of clients, but two of his clients from last year's free agency did very well, right? Snell got $30 million from the Giants and then got a huge contract with the Dodgers this offseason, right? Chapman got a couple of million, got $20 million for last season, and then they paid him before he even hit the market $150 million, right? So Boris is selling to Alonso here. You go back to the Mets, you get the $30 million here. Now we're chasing 120 to get back to that 150, right? If you have a big year here, you hit 40 home runs, your OPS in the 800s, even if it's not with the Mets, will get you 4, 5, 6 years at 100 million, 120 million, and we'll make up that difference. Because again, if I was Alonso, if I was Boris, you're trying to make the most money, obviously, for your client, but he's chasing that 150. You have to be. I mean, that is a colossal mistake turning down. I know Boris didn't turn it down. I'm sure he would have, but Boris didn't turn it down. He had different agents when he turned down 158 from the Mets in the middle of the 2023 season. But have to be chasing that number.
They have to. And you can make it up now in the aggregate. Like, you can go get your 30, 60, whatever you get from the Mets. And then maybe you end up getting 90 after this year. And you once again meet that number. So for Alonso, good contract. I think it's a win for him. Pete Alonso in Toronto playing second fiddle on a team that absolutely stinks would not have been. I think he would have mashed there. I think he would have had a nice season there. Probably finish out with some good stats in his career there. But Pete Alonso going to Toronto would just be death for his career, because Guerrero's leaving next year, whether you get Pete or not. And it's just not a place to be. And I also think other big suitors, like with Pete, just think about it in hindsight. If the Yankees jumped in on him, I'm just thinking of the teams that are acquiring first baseman this offseason, the Diamondbacks, the Astros. Like if they all jumped in, maybe Houston, he could have built something there.
Yeah.
But if you come to the Yankees from the Mets and suck, you're getting shredded by the entire city for the rest of your career. And
you are, but I think that would have been a spot he would have been interested in going to. I mean, I think if the Yankees were interested and offered him a 3 or 4 year contract, I think he would have said, "Okay, I'm going."
Yeah. So it's it was just the best situation. And
is this the greatest offseason in Mets history?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to talk quick about their pitching staff because I have a lot of people that I see on Twitter. I mean, it's really getting casual now when you're saying the Mets pitching staff sucks and Clay Holmes is their number 2. You have Senga, who with a full year of full health. I don't think Senga's great. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's great. But Senga's good.
I think he's a 2.
There's no way to beat around it. He's a 2 or a really high-end 3.
Yeah.
I'd prefer him as a high-end 3, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, my God, Kodai Senga's your number 2 in the rotation. Yeah. That's the type of pitcher he is.
Yeah.
Manaea was terrific last year. Peterson was terrific the second half of last season. Montas, you're hoping for a 3.7, 3.8 ERA year. That's realistic. You're not looking for him to go 2.4 and be a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah.
Then you have Holmes, who, you're at a wild card spot. After your first 4 pitchers, your 5th and 6th are definitely wild cards. You're like, what can we get from them? If you can get a guy that gives you good enough innings and a sub 4.1 ERA, you're probably pleased with how that spot plays out and with the guys you can bump to the bullpen for October. Now, I think overall, this Mets staff is probably going to do enough to get them to the deadline in a great spot. And then you're that deadline move away. Who's the hot hand pitcher, like Flaherty was last year for LA? Who's the hot hand pitcher that you're going to rely on? And going into last season, I didn't feel any better about the Dodgers staff than I feel about the Mets staff.
Yeah.
So you make that deadline move. A couple guys show up that you don't expect to show up. Montas has a nice year. Maybe Montas has a 3.3, 3.4 ERA year. That can't be ruled out.
Like Severino.
Exactly. So I think the Mets staff is fine. I can't sit here and say this lineup's going to fail because the pitching staff sucks.
They've brought in a few pitchers, right? And a couple of reclamation projects. Obviously, switching Holmes over to a starter is a risk, and trying to fix Montas after his advanced stats say he wasn't that bad, but his, traditional stats say he was, not even a 5th starter, right? And you're trying to fix these guys and a couple of others as well, Blackburn, Canning. You have to think, if you bring in 2 to 3 to 4 of these guys, right? Half of them, if you bring in 3, one of them might not fail. I mean, look at the pitchers they brought in last season. They brought in Manaea, they brought in Hauser, and they brought in Severino. And they fixed 2 of them. And one of them was a complete fail, and they had to release him by May. So, yeah.
With Holmes, what I like is if he sucks at starting, you could probably get him in the 7th inning doing good work. The Holmes has a high floor for the Mets as a pitcher.
Right. It's not a contract that's killing you if he's your setup man, right? Or even at times closing games for you. The 15, I don't even think it's $15 million a year. It's not killing you at all. And by the way, I'll tell you what, I got a weird feeling about Clay Holmes. I don't, there's really like no baseball reason other than I trust Jeremy Hefner, and I think he has the right stuff to match what Hefner likes to do. But I think Clay Holmes, listen, he's not going to pitch 180 innings and be a Cy Young candidate. But like you mentioned, I think he could have 140, 150 innings and 3.8, 3.7 ERA and be, a legitimate option for them in this rotation. And I think they're going to get the most out of Montas as well. And I'll say this, they're talking to the Padres about Cesar King. Now, I don't think that's going to happen right now. But the Mets have an abundance of position players coming up. Not enough spots to fill. If there was ever going to be a season where they're going to make a big deadline splash, I think it would be this one, where they're able to get a pitcher, even if it's just a rental, go get a pitcher at the deadline.
2 things. First, just with Holmes again, forgot what I was going to... Oh, no, Holmes. Yeah, so with Holmes, something that's encouraging is it's not just the Mets went for a shot in the dark and threw a dart at a bunch of project relievers, and landed on Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes, according to himself, at Amazing Day, had multiple offers to be a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Yankees weren't interested in it. But that tells me that a bunch of teams are looking at him and saying he's got starter stuff, and he's putting it out there that he's ready to try and take that step in as a starter and finish his career like that. Also, when you're talking about the position player prospects, the nice thing about now having an owner who's willing to do whatever, and I don't even think Stearns will level out this mentality. I think Stearns has to take advantage of it and be aggressive, is when you have guys like Mauricio, like Acuna, you can afford to get rid of them, because if you 2-3 years down the line need to replace center field or shortstop or third base, whoever you traded as a prospect, you can just do it in free agency or with a massive trade and feel good about your ability to continue filling the team. Like with the Yankees, I remember 2 years ago, we're all sitting here basically saying at the end of the season, when they didn't make the playoffs, when they won 81, 82 games 2 years ago, we were all like, the future does not look good for the Yankees. Stanton's getting older, Cole's getting older, Judge is getting older. And what do? They go get Soto. They have a nice offseason. They go to the World Series. They lose Soto. And you'd argue like, oh man, this team doesn't have a great farm. What are they going to do? Okay, they go get Cody Bellinger. They go get Paul Goldschmidt. They go get Max Fried. And you're saying, okay, they could win the AL again. So that's the nice part about having a rich owner. These prospects become so expendable.
But it's also so important to have them to be able to make those moves. And the Yankees obviously benefited from having guys. And I mean, they're going to be relying on a couple of those top prospects this season to make major impacts to get them back to the World Series. So that's also important. You know, the amount of times I think I had said, probably 100 times, where I had said, oh, just trade Vientos for this guy. It doesn't matter. I don't like Vientos. And look at him now. He's going to be hitting third probably in this lineup. So you got to be careful. And that's why Stearns and these baseball executives get paid the big bucks of who not to trade, who could they, deal with, and, dealing with the risk of trading. That's why they're there and we're here.
I think also, and I don't know if you totally agree with this, but it's always been something that I've felt in baseball and really in sports, and it's a key part of Alonso. Dodgers are defying it right now, but the feeling when you have homegrown guys while you're winning is, and even while you're losing, is such an attachment that fans can get to your team. When your entire team, like the Padres 2 years ago with Soto, I think that team, Tatis had kind of disgraced himself the year before. And then you have Soto, Machado, Musgrove, Darvish, Snell. Like, these are all guys that really aren't Padres. And there was an inability, I think, for their fan base, which is a much smaller one, but for their fan base to connect with that team and really embrace that team. And the team stunk. They won, 77 games? So I think that when you have Alonso and you have Nimmo, they complement. Now, Lindor's different because he feels like a Met. They complement a guy like Soto, who, eventually will feel like a Met, of course, because he's going to be there so long. But he's not the guy that I think the diehards are in love with yet. You could be over the moon excited about getting him, but he's not a nostalgia guy yet. He's not someone that has given you moments and memories yet. Alonso has done it for so long now for the Mets, for about 6 years now for the Mets. So you need those guys. And if you sacrifice all those guys for external players, it usually doesn't work out. You need a couple of these players, and I love that the Mets have them.
And the crazy diehard fan that you're talking about was so pissed that they gave Soto $765 million, and they're sitting there saying, well, why can't we just scrap up 100 and give it to Alonso and give him whatever he wants, right? That's what these crazy diehards were saying. So you make a good point there. Obviously, you don't want to bid against yourself. We've talked about that. But it's exciting, man. It's an exciting time right now. I've never been more excited for a season in my entire life. It's like, I wish it was here. Like, I wish it was tomorrow we were starting. I'll give you, we'll watch the Super Bowl, and then the day after, I wish it was here, and I think for everybody involved here, like there's obviously it's a different feel because there's more pressure because of where you finished last season, but you are so much better than you were last year. I mean, so much better.
Everyone likes to say that about the Dodgers too. The Dodgers are so much better than they were last year, but so are the Mets, man. The Mets are a lot better, and I'll tell you who else. The Braves are going to be a lot better than they were last year because the Braves limped through that season. So I'm looking at, and the Padres are falling apart. I know they haven't really lost enough players to make you think that when you look at the paper, but that team it's just not going to work out, I don't think, in the same way that it has the last two seasons or just last year and then 2 years prior, where you feel like last year I thought the Padres were the second best team in baseball. I don't see that happening again. Losing Scott was huge, and the starting pitching, I don't think both those guys are there by August. So they have a different feeling, but the Braves, the Mets, and the Dodgers, I think, are just powerhouses in the NL. And I think the Phillies could have a little bit of a bounce back year. They had a tough second half of the season, brutal loss.
The Phillies are right there with those three teams. And then a team that we're going to talk about a lot this offseason because I think both of us really like them. Nobody's talking about how good Arizona's going to be. I think Arizona's going to win 93, 94 games this year. So
Bryce Harper was doing you know Harper does TikTok?
He's hysterical, by the way. Yeah.
So he's doing TikTok, and he's doing one of those things where it randomly gives you teams, and it's like you have to pick one from each team. You have to pick either their hitting, pitching, fielding, manager, or whatever it is, bullpen. And he gets Arizona first. And when I think Arizona, I'm thinking I'm going with their starting pitching. I love their starting pitching. He picks their lineup. And Mike, that's not a bad choice. Arizona is loaded. They're really good. The way that they're much better than their 84 win World Series team 2 years ago. They're much better now. And adding Burns, if he gives you a Cy Young year and Naylor gives you a huge contract year, that's a team that can go to the World Series. Nobody's on Arizona.
How about this? 100% they have the pitching to upset the Dodgers. Like, you need the starting pitching to upset a team like that. They actually have it. I'll tell you this. You're going to hear a lot about top threes right now in your lineup now that the Mets brought back Alonso, and you can make the argument as Alonso, Vientos, whatever. And I've seen this all day now. The best top threes in baseball. And obviously the Dodgers are one, right? Arizona's right there. Right there. Carroll, Marte, Naylor. I mean, Marte was an MVP candidate last year. Carroll, who was awful in the first half, was good in the second half, and we know how good he's going to be, right? Sophomore slump, he's fine. That's going to be a really good ball club this year. Really good.
They're terrific, man. And they're athletic. They have a little bit of everything on their squad. They're offensively, they're able to do a little bit of everything. They have good defense. Their pitching top to bottom is top 5 in the league. And they've won before. This group's won before. And Josh Naylor, as your biggest add, he's won before. And what I think Josh Naylor is a much better baseball player than Christian Walker. And I like Christian Walker. I'm not here. I know this offseason I made it sound like I'm kind of thinking he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I just think he's not the cream of the crop first baseman. I think he's a good defensive first baseman. He's a really good hitter, obviously. But Josh Naylor, I think, is a star. And he's been in a small market in Cleveland, shadowed by Jose Ramirez. I think this year, because Marte, while he's still an MVP candidate, is more of a complimentary star. I think this year, in the contract year, with a protected top of the order, Naylor could be a guy that just ascends to absolute stardom. And then walking into that first base class next year, there might be a discussion on and I actually think I would have this discussion now, but I can get Vlad for 500 plus, or I could get Naylor for half.
I think less than half.
Less than half. Probably less than 200.
Yeah, definitely.
And Vlad's going to come with the name and the age and all the hype. But when I'm looking at Naylor and saying, I can get this guy for half the years, a third of the price, I love the upside that he'd give me, and a lefty bat nonetheless. So I think that's going to be a discussion next year.
And he'll be 28. I'm just trying to see how old. I know Vlad's a younger guy, and that plays into it a lot.
Especially
Yeah,
for the
Vlad will be
Mets,
26.
especially for the Mets, a team in the Mets spot. You just gave out an $800 million contract. You're going to sit there
Yeah.
next year and confidently say, we like getting Vlad at 500 plus on the same timeline as Soto at 800. I mean,
Even if it's
two
400.
guys. Those are two guys. Exactly. Even if it's 350, those are just two guys that would anyone be surprised in 8 years if they're DHs? And then you have both of them for another 4 or 5 years on your payroll for $100 million. That's a big investment for a team that's trying to get a first baseman.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of Vlad, right? I don't like the idea of Vlad at anything over 400. That's what I'll say. Like, obviously, he's a great player, he's a great hitter. But for me, with Vlad, I know that's the dream for a lot of Mets fans. There's a lot of other dreams I have, okay? And Vlad is not part of it. Again, if Vlad has a huge year and makes himself $450 million, I'm probably gonna back off of that.
Yeah, and you'd be right. I'd agree with you on that. Anything else here, Mets wise? I want to talk to you about their bullpen for a second.
Legit.
But are you confident in that?
Very confident.
Okay,
very
confident. I'm not going to argue that it's bad because I think it could be very good.
Yeah.
But there is a contingent of people that think the bullpen stinks.
I don't understand that. I really don't. I think I'll say this, and you could call me absolutely wild. I think they're going to have a top 5 bullpen in the entire sport this year.
I could see top 5 because how many bullpens are actually good? There's not that many good bullpens. There's a handful
I don't know.
Of good bullpens. And I think there's going to be good.
Very confident. Very confident.
I think their bullpen's going to be good, and they're going to be playing with the lead a lot.
Hopefully.
So, yeah. So the high leverage guys are going to have a chance to shine.
I think the Minter signing is great. I love the Minter signing.
He's great. Just because you said hopefully, it just sparked the imagination. How bad is this if we're sitting here the last week of September and they're like 19 games out of first? And
why would you say that?
And they had like a 74 win season.
Why would you even put that out there?
And because it's not going to happen again because there were way different issues. But that's what happened with the Padres. We were all sitting here like murderers row, Tatis, Machado, Soto. This team's insane. This team's amazing. And
no, it's not happening. It's not happening.
And we're sitting here 5 months later and they didn't make the playoffs.
No, they'll be good.
That would be
all time.
First of all, terrible for the pod.
Yeah.
We would hate that. But like you would not live it down until they won 100 games in a World Series.
Yeah.
That the fact that this season went so south. Because now they're the most hyped team entering the season, I think. I think more than the Dodgers only because the Dodgers won.
I still think it's the Dodgers. But yeah, they're the second. I think they're the second because the Dodgers added. Like the Dodgers did more on top of what they did last offseason and then the World Series. I don't know. I'll tell you this. I don't know where they rank in terms of like every team in the league right now. I'd probably say they're like 3 or 4 if I had to like give you a roundabout on paper right now. The only teams better, I'd say, are the Dodgers, Braves, and then maybe the Yankees.
Yeah.
If they were to trade for Cease or King, I think they're 2. And I think they're in a firm spot in number 2.
I agree with that. Completely agree with that. I think you could argue only the Phillies or the D-backs also as the rest. Once again, I'm out on the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Houston is in much of an argument for this. Maybe if they bring Bregman back. But you're right. They are a starting pitcher, a top 3 starting pitcher away from moving to a 2. And those 2 guys can be in almost ace category.
Mm-hmm.
Those are high-end 2s. So you could call them a low-level ace if you wanted to. So those would be a huge, huge add, either of them. But
I don't think they're adding them before the year.
No, me either. I'll ask you this question. Not who's better. Who has improved more this offseason? Mets or Dodgers?
The Mets have improved their team more than the Dodgers, I think, at least.
I'd
The
agree.
bull-
Dodgers have improved. They're definitely top 2 in team improvement, I'd
Yeah.
say. Because the Yankees did a lot, but they lost Soto. So it
Mhm.
negates most of what they've done this offseason
Right.
because he's obviously a far better player than anyone they acquired. But the Dodgers, besides Scott, who makes their team so much better, and Snell, they just didn't do nearly enough in the lineup to improve as much as the Mets did.
No, I mean, the Mets added the best player available. They
Mhm.
added to a weak part of their team, which was the bullpen in a big way. I think like the lineup is just, it's longer now for the entirety of the season, right? You bring Winker back and now all of a sudden you have a nice platoon of DH. I don't know. I think the rotation, if it didn't get better, it stayed the same, and they were
Yeah.
a good rotation in terms of team ERA last season. So yeah, I think it's the Mets, and Soto obviously puts them over the top. I mean, you had the best player in the sport for $700 million. I mean, you better be the most improved team.
And the Dodgers lineup basically stays the same. It's Snell, Sasaki, Scott that really are.
Please don't forget about Conforto.
Oh yeah, Conforto too. Which I know, kind of a laugher for us.
25 homers, 800
but
away.
he's going to be a stud.
Yeah,
he will be
110%.
great with the Dodgers. I'm excited for baseball season, man. But I'll be excited for Yankee season if they get me a third baseman.
They need to get a third baseman. I mean,
They need to get a third baseman.
you cannot go into this season with DJ LeMahieu or Peraza or Cabrera as potential starting third baseman. It cannot happen.
No, it's embarrassing, really, if the Yankees enter the season without a real third baseman. Cabrera is a nice player, but he's a utility.
Yeah.
Play almost every day. Play 2 out of 3 games every series. But as one game you're in left, one game you're at second, next game you're at third. Move him around. He's a typical utility guy to just give players night off.
But they shouldn't go and get Bregman. Like, I'm not advocating for them to go get Bregman.
No, me either. I do think that Arenado is just a gold piece for them. Like, that's just such a no-brainer, and I doubt that it happens.
Well, it matches up with their timeline, too.
Exactly. It matches up with their timeline. You don't have to
have an older team.
Bregman, I would take Bregman, but, I don't think it's the right move.
No, signing Bregman to a 6 or 7 year contract at this point in time is not the right move, especially because they're going to be all in most likely on Kyle Tucker next offseason.
Yeah, and I don't think that the ballpark plays for Bregman. I just think Arenado is a great situation. And Arenado with Goldschmidt, they know how to play defense, not only together, but they're both Gold Glove guys. Mm-hmm. You just lock down your corners in a way that you haven't had since, I don't know, man. Like, Teixeira was a great first baseman. I'm trying to think of when he was even paired with a third for 1 year of Teixeira and Eric Chavez.
Besides A-Rod, when was the last time they had a legitimate third base? Was Chase Headley?
And he was terrible with the Yankees. So
how have the Yankees not figured out? That's like the Mets center field. They just haven't figured out third base in a while.
Well, the Yankees, they gave it an honest try with Andujar.
Yeah.
And then Gio Urshela was terrific in 2019. But that only lasted a year, really.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to find a sure guy there. But they missed the ball on a couple guys. They missed the ball on Machado in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy out of everybody. I know Harper would have made a lot of sense, but Machado was the guy out of everyone that seemed like the Yankees needed him. He'd locked down the left side of your infield for a very long time. He wanted to be a Yankee, and you didn't get him. So that seems maybe Baltimore wouldn't trade him to the Yankees. Sounds like wouldn't trade him to the Yankees before when he went to the Dodgers, and then when he's a free agent, the Yankees didn't even meet with him. So that was where I think they dropped the ball. But here we are. And
Harper's the guy. Harper's the guy they missed out on.
Harper was too.
That's the guy.
That was a perfect Yankee Stadium player. And for them to miss out on Machado, it was just that offseason, really. That offseason is where you botched it. Because now you, in theory, would be locked down at first base with Harper. and you'd still have Judge out in right field. You'd have Stanton DHing. You'd have Dominguez playing in outfield. You probably could have gotten a guy like Bellinger anyways. And you'd have, to round out the rest of the team, Volpe would probably be playing. Second base. Probably could have got Chisholm still.
The what if they signed Harper would have turned around the history of baseball forever.
Would have. And the Yankees, imagine how much better off they are with that guy in their lineup.
They probably have a World Series. They definitely have a World Series right now.
I think so, too.
They had signed Harper in that offseason.
They would have never gotten Soto for the year.
No.
And therefore, they wouldn't have lost Michael King, Drew Thorpe, and Higashioka, and whoever else, Johnny Brito. They wouldn't have lost those guys.
You think they still have Stanton? I don't know if they have Stanton on this
team. I don't know if they'd still have Stanton. But
no, like at all. Like I don't think they would have had Stanton at all.
Well, they traded for Stanton the year before Harper went to Philly.
Right.
Which was actually the domino effect that I think led to them not pursuing it.
Right.
Because now you have a 27-year-old, whatever he was, 28, 29 years old, $27 million MVP outfielder. Why are you going now to get Harper when you have Judge and Stanton? That makes sense at the time. That's why I was like, Machado, go get Machado. You need a third baseman. And they didn't. But, here we are. And now they have no third baseman. And I tell you, if I don't really like to get on Hal Steinbrenner for not spending money. I don't think he's cheap. It's a $300 million baseball team. Brian Cashman has to do a better job allocating those resources. Carlos Rodon and Marcus Stroman are making $1 billion this year. So that's problem number one. But beyond that, if Marcus Stroman not getting moved is the reason you're not getting a third baseman, that's bad reflection of ownership.
I mean, are you really going to they can't expect to trade Marcus Stroman here, right? And not eat at least half of the contract.
Yeah, and I think you got to eat 3/4 of the contract.
So, just put this into your head that you're going to have him on this team. And if that's what's stopping them, that's crazy. The fact that the $300 million mark here, like going over that highest tax threshold, is a legitimate number for them. I think in the situation that they're currently in, which is towards the back end of Judge's prime, right? Like you're not on the front end of Judge's prime. I'm not saying it's ending, but you're certainly not on the front end of it. Same thing with Cole. You saw him get injured for the first half of the season last year. Like you got to do whatever you can with however long this window is going to be open for to be aggressive. Because, I mean, ideally, in a couple of years, you're not paying that tax threshold. You're not paying the highest tax threshold there. You're not over that. But for now, if you have to do it, you have to do it.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely. I'm a little disappointed in the way they've operated this offseason. Do you think the Yankees got better this offseason?
I think they're better in certain departments, but overall, no, I don't think they're a better team than they were last year.
I agree.
Again,
and
they're better defensively. They're more athletic. Their rotation's a bit better, but overall, you lost the third or fourth best player in the league.
And losing Torres as well. I don't want Torres back on the Yankees, but losing a 260, 270 hitter last year who was good in your leadoff spot and good in the postseason and has actually always been good in the postseason. Not great, not bad, but good. Losing that guy and now not replacing him makes you worse because the bare minimum when you lose Torres is get a guy who now, maybe hits 240, but produces at an almost equal rate, plays good defense, and gives you a little more athleticism. But you're not doing that. You're getting DJ LeMahieu, who's worse defensively or worse athletically, probably the same defensively when everything comes together with him playing third base, and worse hitter, way worse. Like he can't hit.
Well, think about this from an offensive standpoint. Take everything else out of it. Their pitching staff, bullpen, much better. You get Williams, one of the best closers in baseball, and obviously you had Fried, right? They're better there. So let's just look at it offensively, right? You're essentially replacing Soto with Bellinger, right?
Yep.
That's obviously a downgrade. You're replacing Rizzo with Goldschmidt, So you're better. I don't know how much better, but you're better, right? It's
Mhm.
better.
It's better.
And then Jazz goes to second, and you're not replacing Torres here at third. So Torres a better offensive player, like you mentioned, than anybody else that could possibly start for them. And that's saying a lot because he wasn't that great last season. He was good. He was okay, but he wasn't great. I think you're significantly worse than you were last season offensively.
I agree. Now you're better pitching, obviously, because of Fried.
Yeah.
And their bullpen, I think, is the best in the league. We talked about the Mets bullpen the other day, but I do think the Yankees now boast the league's best pen. Maybe
Weaver
the
and
Dodgers are better.
Weaver and Williams are a lethal duo at the back. I don't think they're the best, but they're up
Yeah,
there.
I don't think they're the best back end duo. I think they're setup men when paired with those two. I think it could make them the best pen in the league. But what I love is Clay Holmes was one of your biggest detriments last year, where blew 12 games. Williams isn't going to save everything, but you expect him out of those 12 that Holmes blew, Williams probably saves 9.
Yeah.
So
even if it's 6.
Exactly. If it's 6, the Yankees host the Dodgers in the World Series.
Right.
If it's 4, the Yankees host the Dodgers in the World Series. Like we just couldn't blow 8 of those saves.
Right.
So Williams is a great replacement. As long as they stay healthy, I'm excited about the pen. But you're right. Like they're going to win a lot of games next year, I think. 2-0, 2-1, 3-1. Whereas last year, they were able to cruise through the first 3 months of the season, winning games like 8-3, 10-5. We saw it again later in the year. We saw it in the postseason against Cleveland. They really just raked against Cleveland, and Soto was such a massive part of their offense against Cleveland. Stanton's their best postseason hitter. You still have him, but once again, how healthy is he? Is he going to take a step back? That's going to happen eventually, where Stanton has a bad postseason. So I don't love this Yankees team right now. I think they've done enough to make you forget about losing Soto for the time being and say we could win games right now. I mean, this is definitely a team that could win.
You could go back to the World Series with what they've done.
I just need a third baseman, man. Like, I don't think that's too much to ask. It's one of 9 positions. Like we should have the team's worth $300 million that were put in the field. They should have a third baseman.
And 2 of these players, by the way, are making nothing.
Yeah. So the fact that we don't have a third baseman is like, what do we do? I don't understand the process.
I don't get it either. I don't.
But did you hear Boone on Tierney and Sal a few weeks ago?
What'd he say?
They kept trying to get the third base answer out of him, and he kept going. They kept saying, "So DJ's your third baseman." He's like, "Well, for now, is Cabrera going to be in competition for third base?" Well, he is for now. So he kept saying for now. So I do think they're trying. I do think they checked in on Arenado. I do think they checked in on Arias. I do think they've met with Bregman. I don't know if they're going to get any of the 3. I don't even want Arias. I think he sucks at defense, but I'll take him. At this point, I'll take him so that I have a third baseman. Give me a third baseman.
Well, Arias would go to second and
Chisholm would go to third, and then your infield defense sucks again.
Yeah.
So, because like I still don't understand. We've said it on here, so excuse my irrelevant rant. Like I don't understand how you think Volpe's a good enough defender. Volpe's a good defender, right? That's known. He's good, but he's not Bobby Witt, where he could be paired between Jazz Chisholm and Luis Arias, hold down the infield.
Right.
And is it out of the realm of possibility that Paul Goldschmidt regresses defensively this year?
He's 37 years old. There's a chance.
59-year-old first baseman. Like,
there's a chance.
It's possible, guys. This is what's bothering me with the Yankees and the fans. Like, they look at the lineup, they see 4 guys who have won MVPs. They don't mention that 3 of them can hardly play the whole game anymore. Like Stanton can't even play defense or run. He literally can't run, Mike.
No, we saw on a national scale.
Yeah, he literally can't run. Bellinger has been average at best the last 2-3 years.
I like Bellinger.
Slightly above average. That's my favorite move of the offseason. I'm excited about Bellinger. I think he's going to have a really nice year. But they just have to realize that to put LeMahieu or Cabrera in the lineup, you're banking on Goldschmidt having a really good year, Bellinger having a really good year, Stanton having a really good year. Because I'm telling you right now, LeMahieu or Cabrera are not having a really good year. I know it for a fact.
Yeah.
So
No,
get
it's
Arenado, so it increases the chances of one of those four guys having an amazing year, one or two of them having a good year, and one of them is going to be underwhelming.
and you
One of them is
haven't
going to be Alex Verdugo.
and you haven't even mentioned the fact that you're relying on Dominguez, who has not played even close to a full season,
Yeah.
breaking into this league. You need Volpe to break out and be that big time offensive player as well. So, like, there's a lot that needs to happen in this one season, and adding protection to that lineup for these younger guys, I think, it's the same thing with Alonso and the Mets. It's like you need to protect your investment of Juan Soto and the future of Mark Vientos and all the other guys around. Same thing here. If you could protect your investment of Jason Dominguez and Cody Bellinger and other players and Volpe, you need to do that.
Did you see this tweet the other day by this Yankee account that said, "Would you be happy with these numbers from Anthony Volpe this season?" It got a 250,000 views. Did you see this?
I didn't.
The numbers, these are the numbers. Would you be happy with these numbers? 23 home runs, 77 RBIs, 30 stolen bases, 760 OPS, 114 WRC plus. Would I be happy with that from Anthony Volpe, who hits 215 every year, steals 14 bags? Yeah, I'd be happy. The guy last year, he couldn't hit a ball out of the infield. Would I be happy with 23 homers, 77 RBIs, a 760 OPS, and a 114 WRC plus? Come on. Like, who do we think this guy is?
Well, he was anointed to levels which was unfair to him. It was unfair to him, the way the fans, and I guess you could even blame the media a little bit, what they did to this kid coming up. I mean, he was the next Jeter. He was the biggest thing. The Yankees didn't trade him for anything. They didn't sign shortstops because they had this kid coming up. I mean, so much pressure, even by the organization, was put on him.
Yep. And I blame Cashman a lot for that.
Yeah, they should have freaking signed Corey Seager. How about that for a miss?
They pass up on Seager, Swanson, Correa, all of whom were great, are better than Volpe right now. Pass up on all these guys. You really punt a couple seasons there with guys like, I mean, you had the Torres shortstop year, which was okay because he was supposed to play it as a pro, but didn't work out. And then you have the IKF shortstop years. Like, this is like punting seasons to wait for Anthony Volpe.
And how about this? Volpe comes up. Great, Corey. Go play third. Great, Correa. Go play third. Both of those guys will be, especially Correa. Correa probably win a Gold Glove at third base if they moved him there. And Seager would have been fine at third. I mean, it's just.
I mean, and what has Seager done since Volpe came up? Right, just had one of the greatest postseasons in baseball history and win World Series MVP and dominate on his way to
35 home runs at Yankee Stadium a year. Yeah.
Oh my God! Like even Marcus Semien, can we get a guy like that for the last few years to lock in your infield? The amount of middle infielders that Brian Cashman has passed up because of Gleyber Torres and Anthony Volpe has been pathetic. Pathetic display of being a general manager.
Yeah.
Oh, exhausting stuff, man. I can't wait for baseball.
I can't wait to watch that team, though. Oh, listen, it's going to be, you know what, when you're the class of your division and you're the class of your league, which the Yankees are going to be, and you have the best player, the second best player in baseball, you should be excited, and it's going to be a fun year.
Do you think that, well, you mentioned a little bit before, but do you think Red Sox get Arenado, they could win this division?
No. I like the Red Sox. I do. I think they're absolutely going to be a playoff team. They're going to bring up a couple of these younger guys, and they'll make impact. So I do like the Red Sox, and they're a playoff team for me. But they're not better than the Yankees, even if they added Arenado. The tough spot that they're in, Kevin, is that they got Casas, who's a question mark, right? And they tried to trade him for Castillo. Mm-hmm. And you have Devers, who probably isn't really a great third baseman, and you have a couple of guys here that are available at third base. But what are you going to do? You're going to trade Casas. You're going to move off of him. Who's going to DH? You're going to put Bregman at second if you signed him. Like, they're just in a weird spot positionally where they had the money to go spend on Soto apparently, and now they're not because it kind of just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think the Sox are probably, in all honesty, I think they compete for the division this year, but I think in all honesty, they're a year away from serious competition. But the Sox this year If the Yankees play a little below their expected and the Sox play just slightly above their expected, they're going to be there the whole year. Are we sleeping on Baltimore? A year ago, we're all anointing them. Even 10 months ago, we're all anointing them as the next dynasty team.
They don't deserve anything.
No, they don't, right? And the new ownership is embarrassing.
Disgusting display of how to build a franchise.
Yep.
And I hope I actually am now rooting against them. After rooting for them for the last couple of years, I will be rooting against them because of the mismanagement of the roster.
Yeah,
and I don't think they're going to be that good. I think Toronto's going to stink too. I think Toronto's going to come in last here. And I think Tampa Bay is going to be better than people think.
Well, I think we're due for that. And I've been saying this with no substance, but I think we're due for that Tampa year where Tampa wins 88, 89 games. They're a thorn in everyone's side.
They're playing playoff games at Steinbrenner Field this year.
Steinbrenner Field. I wonder if they'd get relocated. Like they play the whole year at Steinbrenner Field, and then the MLB is like, you got to go play at the Marlins Stadium, or you got to go play.
I would hope so if they had a playoff game.
Anywhere else. Literally anywhere. Pick any field. You cannot play at Steinbrenner Field because
Lone Depot is going to be open in October.
Yeah, Lone Depot's always open.
Have you ever
closes last weekend of September?
Yeah. Have you ever been to Steinbrenner Field or no?
No, I haven't been. I'm going to go next year.
Okay. Interesting. That's a major league ballpark. I'm excited to watch this year.
No.
The A's. I'm pumped to watch the A's
too.
this year. They're going to be good. They're going to be sneaky good.
There's something cool also about these teams that don't sell out the big stadiums, going to the smaller minor league spring training fields and having packed houses at these small little buildings. I think there's something cool about it for a year or two. It can't be something that you play for 40, 50 years because then it's really embarrassing.
Well, this stadium's also not like a piece of crap. And I'm not calling Steinbrenner Field a piece of crap. But
dude,
it's not tiny like that.
Watch it.
I'm not saying that. It's not like a single A stadium. It's it's a triple A. It's a legitimate sort of stadium over there in Sacramento, I'm pretty sure. So I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Well, it's like when the Blue Jays played.
That was terrible. Dunedin. That was terrible.
Yeah.
And that's what the Rays are going to look like this year. But does it look any better than it does when they're playing with the white freaking roof at Tropicana?
What is the stadium that they're playing at?
Who?
The A's, sorry.
Sacramento. It's in Sacramento.
Yeah, but I'm seeing two. I think this is it. But either I think when the Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah hockey team, when they went to Mullet Arena, where there were like 3,000 seats at Arizona State, and they packed it out every night.
Yeah,
there was a cooler feeling because that team was just in an empty building every night, and it was like, this sucks to play here because you're watching the game. There's no energy at all. Now I think you get a little juice at these games. This is actually like going to be a cool little stadium to look at for this year if I can find the picture now. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So this is going to be a cool little for a year or two. Go in, couple nice moments like that's going to be a nice little park.
That's legit. That's legit.
To go watch a game to play a game, to watch on TV. I'm good. I'm cool with that.
For like 2 years.
For 2 years. And then that you got to really
get better at Vegas ready to go.
You got to be serious and become an adult baseball team.
Yeah.
You got to move back.
They have, man. They've spent some money.
Yeah, that was a nice little let's appease the fans for the first time ever off season for them.
They probably have, I don't know how, but they probably have so much money right now, like just like sitting there.
Yeah.
And like from the revenue and crap like that, they're like, gotta spend it.
You got to think too. Imagine being an A's fan and you're like, yeah, thanks for spending it on Rooker and Severino, but like we could have had Olsen, Chapman, Manaea.
Yeah.
That could have been your squad.
They have a lot of young players coming up right now, though, that either made impacts last year or are going to make impacts this year, and they're supposed to be good.
Why are we talking A's?
I don't know, but I'm excited.
Why are we talking A's?
That's how excited I am for baseball. I will watch the A's voluntarily right now.
I'm pumped. All right, last one, and then we're wrapping because we're talking A's. Bregman, do you have a prediction? Do you have a thought on the contract? Obviously, he's still looking for 6-7 years. Don't think he's getting that, but he does.
Yeah, he still thinks he's getting it. I predict he'll end up signing one of these contracts like Bellinger, Alonso, like a 3-year, $95 million opt out after one. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And listen, if there's an opt out after one, I think there's a lot of teams that should be in on this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teams for Bregman for a year, especially the Red Sox. If you're going to go get Arenado and trade, I know you're not going to have to trade one of your top prospects for Arenado, so it's not really like that's the conversation. But you're going to trade and take on money for Arenado. Just go get Bregman.
Yeah.
Because he plays well in Fenway, that swing.
Well, you could just move him to second, too, if you want. I know he's a great third baseman. But...
And I don't know how Arenado's flexibility is in that. Arenado, you're playing a third.
Yeah.
If you get him. And then Devers is moving, and you're trading Casas. So...
How much better are you if you do that, though, if you're Boston?
If you get Arenado and trade Casas?
Yeah, like, you're getting that much better? I like Casas. I would rather bet on the upside of Casas having a 30, 35 home run year and staying healthy than trade for Arenado.
I think he's a good baseball player. I don't think he's great, but he's a good baseball player, and you're trading him at a low point.
Yeah. No, like
I don't think his value will ever be. I mean, the value in him right now is the service time. And you get 3 or 4 years here to control the guy and hope he develops. But realistically, like Boston should be looking at that and saying, yeah, the value here is we don't have to pay our first baseman, and he's a good player.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Bregman, I think if it's a short-term deal, I think Chicago is going to be very interested. I think if it's a short-term deal, he'll go to Chicago. If he wants to get a long-term deal, I think he's going to have to deal with going to Toronto. I don't know how he feels about Detroit, but I think Detroit will be involved as well on a short-term deal. So I think one of those 3 teams, whether it's short or long, will be the suitors for him.
And I think he's still just sitting here like banking on his contract. He's just sitting here saying like, I'm sticking my guns because I feel like I can get it from somewhere. I feel like the only place that'll give it to him maybe is Houston. They'll give him 5 or 6 years, but they're not going to do that.
And they do have that 6-year deal on the table, but he wants more money. So
yeah,
he's getting a little big here.
That's the only place you can get the years. The only place you can get the years is Houston. But the maybe there's other places for the money. I think Detroit would have done it by now if they didn't still have to pay Javi Baez this year.
That's killer. That's killer.
I mean, paying Baez is killing them.
But they have the money. They could make this deal. They could. I mean,
Baez, what's the rest of his contract here? This is a mess for Detroit, who doesn't spend. He's 32 years old right now.
He's one of the worst players in baseball.
He's got $25 million, $24 million, $24 million for the next 3 years.
Jesus.
And it's, it's $140 million contract for 6 years. That's just a disaster for them.
And they gotta pencil him in every night.
Yeah, they had, I thought they were going to buy him out. I thought they were really just going to bite the bullet there and say, we're not going to do anything in free agency, but we're just going to give him his $75 million and leave.
Yeah.
Which I would have done if I was an owner. Like, just forget this. I'm worth a couple $1 billion. I'll make $75 million back. And even if I don't, I'm all right.
Yeah. Not to watch this guy play baseball is worth it.
Oh my God, Javi Baez. That's just the worst contract in the league. That's definitely the worst contract in the league, right? Like, there's not even one close. Right now.
Currently,
Rendon
is definitely one. Yeah, that might be it.
I saw a Rendon stat. Yeah, Rendon's $35 million for the next 2 years. Did you see the Rendon stat that I'm about to bring up? That I don't remember what it was though. What was it?
It was like Ted Williams played more when he went to war.
I think I bookmarked it on Twitter. Yeah, here it is. Ted Williams played more baseball during World War II while also fighting in it than Anthony Rendon has played during his Angels contract, because it was the same amount of years that Rendon was in. Yeah, and this guy did a full. I'm gonna pull it up.
Oh my God!
This guy did a full What are we talking about? This guy did a full Baseball Reference comparison.
Yeah.
On their time in each. That we'll wrap up if we're talking A's and Anthony Rendon here. So
and Ted Williams at
Ted,
WAR.
Yeah, once we're talking Ted Williams. You know, Ted Williams, his head's frozen. You know that?
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, it's frozen. Yeah, they cut his head off and froze it.
Is it at the Hall of Fame?
No.
They should put his head.
It's in a refrigerator in Arizona.
They should do that. They should add that, a refrigerator in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and put his head in there. That's the ultimate piece of artifact for sure.
Yeah, that would be serious.
You would really be the Baseball Hall. You know what I was thinking when I was there over the summer? That they should bury the players there, like underneath the Hall of Fame.
No, dude, you're sick.
I think that would make it even like more cool.
Why?
Am I crazy?
Would there be like tombstones there?
Yeah, it's almost I kind of viewed like their plaques as like, especially the dead guys, as their tombstones almost.
Yeah. And I do feel like in like the baseball lore, that's where the spirits reside.
Right. That's how I felt when I walked into that one room. I was like, oh crap. Yeah. Is that not is that not a good take? Bury the players.
It's just a little bit of a weird take.
Okay.
Why are you worried about where they're buried?
I just think it would add to the Hall of Fame. I'll contact the people at the Hall of Fame. I still have their emails.
This is Rendon during his contract with the Angels versus Ted Williams during his contract with or during his time in the war.
Missed all of 1943, 44, 45 for service time.
So he played in 1942 and 1942 and 1946, 300 games, and he has a higher WAR by 7 times. He has how many more games played here? 43 more games played.
That is sickening.
300 more plate appearances. He has 100 more hits, 150 more hits. He has 52 more homers, 135 more RBIs. This is insane.
This is like the perfect stat for the old head that's like, oh, they don't use to play it like they did in my day. Yeah, this is literally the perfect stat. This guy fought in World War II.
I mean, his OPS was 1,100 while he was at war, and Rendon's is 700. This is
cursing out fans.
Whoever came up with this, like the guy that came up with this, let me find his. So I know Barstool made it a little more popular by reposting it, but they didn't give the guy any credit. But this guy, not Gatey.
Yeah.
This is his profile picture on.
Yeah.
He is the one who posted this.
He did the work.
That's a great stat. Great
Unbelievable.
Stat. He posts all historic baseball stuff too. It's a cool account.
So, Ted Williams, good for him.
You know, Ted Williams is like the most decorated fighter pilot of all time too.
Is he really?
Yeah, let me look that up too quick.
So he's like the greatest human being of all time.
Yeah, he really is like the greatest human ever.
I kind of feel bad. I left him off an all-time baseball team a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
just put him on.
Let's see. Yeah, he also helped millions of children suffering from cancer. He flew 37 combat missions in World War II. I mean,
nobody better.
He's literally the greatest human to ever live.
When I strive to be like somebody, I should strive to be like Ted Williams.
Yeah, but you have no there's no opportunity for a person to be as good as Ted Williams. You have it's not even an insult. It's just like
there's no draft
because a fighter pilot rarely becomes as good as Ted Williams, and a baseball player maybe has never been as good as Ted Williams.
Yeah.
So how does a guy like us, who, become as good or as accomplished as someone who's the best at both and one of the best childhood cancer philanthropists of all time?
Literally nobody better.
That's a good note to end the show on.
We're starting the campaign that Ted Williams is the greatest human of all time. If it hasn't been started, I've never seen that. So,
yeah, Ted Williams is like the greatest person ever. And his head is cut off and frozen.
Because they want to study out.
Because they said, I read this once, I don't know how true it is, but somebody said, and Ted Williams agreed, if we can bring him back to life, like we need to give someone his abilities. If we could do that in the future, because he's so great at everything. Like if we could preserve his brain, then the world will be a better place. That was the mindset.
So they should bring him to the Hall of Fame.
Trust me, dude. Nobody is saying when Michael Merlo or Kevin Bunk dies, we need to get his brain and preserve it.
No, they might study it, though.
They might study it.
They might study one of our ads, that's for sure.
They're studying yours, for sure.
Like, what happened here?
And then they're burying you under the Hall of Fame.
That would be a great honor. I would give them permission, by the way. They have permission to bury me under the Hall of Fame when I'm dead.
All right, I'm wrapping this up here.
Yeah.
Good episode 33. I think next time we do an episode is probably going to be in 3 weeks, and we will be going full steam ahead after that with spring training and getting ready for the regular season. We'll have a lot of stuff planned for that, so it won't just be us talking. It'll be more of a formatted show, and then we'll get into the Burrows hopefully a couple times a week on somewhat of a schedule. So appreciate you all watching today. We will be back in a few weeks. Enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. Be safe if you're traveling. Who do you got this weekend, Super Bowl? Because we're not going to do anything before then.
KC wins.
You're going KC? Yeah, I think Philly's better. I think everyone would agree with that. Like, Philly's the best team. But until KC loses, you just can't pick against KC.
So you're picking
just
KC.
Keep winning. Yeah, they just keep winning. All right, cool. Wrap it. Thanks for watching episode 33, episode 34 coming out 3-4 weeks to kick off season 2 of The Burrows.